Hi, I'm Greg Uland with Reynolds & Reynolds, and this is Connected live at the NADA show. Really excited for this conversation. I get to sit down with Sam Dark. Sam, there are so many labels that you can apply to this guy. He's the host of Daily Dealer Live, the COO of Zeigler Auto Group, and one of the judges of last year's Automotive Amplifiers contest at Amplify in Dallas.
That was a heck of a lot of fun. Thanks, Greg.
Sam, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So recently, you've been on the other side of the table, doing a lot of the interviewing more.
Yeah.
So I wanted to dive in and talk about that a little bit. So you've been in retail for a long time, right? You're currently the CEO of a very large dealer group. And a year ago, you kind of decided, you know what? I need something to do in the mornings because I don't have anything else to do. So I'm going to host a daily show as part of the CarDealershipGuy network, Daily Dealer. So tell me a little bit about that.
No, it's a great question. Thanks for having me, by the way. What a cool place to be at NADA. We're here on the floor at Reynolds, and there's a vibe. It's electric and kind of exciting what's happening here as everybody gets back together after New Orleans was such a challenge. So it's fun to be here with you. So part of what you said is right. I'll take you back a little bit to give you the full history. Right. So yes, Daily Dealer Live, we're about 140 episodes in, about 6-9 months or so.
Okay.
But where it all began was when I joined Aaron Zeigler as CEO with the Zeigler Auto Group about 5 years ago. I left a Swiss-based insurance company, came to Aaron during COVID, and I'm like, Aaron, wouldn't it be cool to have a podcast to communicate with our employees and communicate with others kind of adjacent to our auto group? It'd be great to do that as just a way of kind of leveling up our communication game. And to Aaron's credit, Aaron's like, well, I could see a lot of ways that could go wrong, right? Because not so much now, but 5 years ago, because now it's cool. 5 years ago, it was like, there's not a lot of transparency in automotive. And 5 years ago, we were probably more worried about what people could say that would mess it up rather than what they could say right to show behind the scenes. Like there wasn't the Benz and bow ties guy then. There wasn't Brian Benstock and some of the others that are out there talking about what they do every day. But Aaron's like, let's do it. That'll be a heck of a lot of fun. So we came up with a podcast that we did internally once a week.
Yep.
And I curated it, voiced it. We put content about goings-ons within the auto group. I would interview members of our team and highlight their accomplishments. And here's what we learned. People love getting to know each other better. Podcasts are a great format to do that, especially even longer form podcasts. When you can talk to a detailer and you can hear their story about how they got into automotive, or a general manager or a sales manager, the entire team gets to know that person better. And you're bought off into that person in a way that is tough to do in any other format. And podcast was still pretty new then. It did really well internally. And then we started having our vendors. They're like, look, we've heard about this. We've seen clips that you did. We want to do the same thing. And so we did a second podcast with the external content. Because to be fair, there were things we wanted to say to employees that were different than what we wanted to say to vendors and other partners. That went really well. About a year and a half ago, Yossi, CarDealershipGuy, he came to us and he's like, look, like what you're doing. You guys communicate really well. You're kind of industry leading. I got an idea. He's like, come host something called the Industry Spotlight. And the idea behind that was, what's a problem that a car dealer faces today in our industry? And then what's a unique solution, like a vendor or a partner that helps you solve it? We did that for about a year, went really well. It was well reviewed. And then Yossi came to me and he's like, dude, how cool would it be? We should be the CNN of automotive, a daily show that would be like news format, have a ticker tape on the bottom, have live guests, you interview them live. And my first response was, that's insane. Like, you're not going to get people in automotive to be so open and transparent, right?
Yeah.
They're going to really worry about what they're going to say. And I said yes. I didn't say yes to every single day. We did, so we do 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, across all social media platforms. But here's what I found in doing this. People open up in our industry. They want to tell their story. They want to share how they got where they are. And candidly, they want to share their problems and their challenges. And I have had an absolute blast, even with my COO day gig.
Right.
I've had a blast just being able to be in a position where I get in front of interesting people like yourself, hear their story, what they're working on, things that are working well, things that are not, and then highlight their story. Automotive is a truly interesting industry.
Oh, yeah.
I've been in it since I was in high school. I was a detailer. And people can accomplish even today in 2026 things in automotive that you can't do in many other industries. It's really, in so many ways, it's the American dream in an era where a lot of the American dream in a lot of industries is dead. So that's how that podcast was kind of born. And then it's been fun to be here at NADA and see all the different people we've interviewed coming up and saying, well, hey, I got a lot of recognition because of the show. It's fun to see the impact that it's ultimately ended up having.
Well, has it been different for you personally? Because I mean, at this point, there's a lot of people here at this show that recognize you walking down an aisle, right? So do you notice that? Do you feel that?
It's it's kind of been interesting, but in the best way possible, right? Like, it's not like, it's what's the joke I always semi well known or semi like. It's not like people walking down the street in Hollywood, in California or somewhere would know you, right? But you come to this industry event where I've been a part of automotive for 30 plus years. So like, I already know people because I've been to NADA every year for the last 15, 20 years, right? But it's fun to have people come up and say, hey, thank you so much for sharing my story, or thanks for asking that tough question. Like, at first, again, to the whole thing about live, I was a little bit nervous. Can I really ask the head of Nissan, hey, there's been 3 leaders in charge of this company over the past year. What is going on, right? But over time, as I've gotten responses and I've seen the benefit to the industry of that type of insight, particularly from someone who knows what we're talking about, because I've been in the industry for a long time, it's been fun to see the response. It's been fun to see how open and transparent people are. Like Tiago, he was on our show today. Yeah. What a rock star. Like, he is going to win as the head of Nissan Infiniti. They are on a trajectory where they're going to turn around a company that's been challenged. There's kind of a certain amount of it just makes you feel good knowing that you're in a place where you can help raise or elevate automotive, and walking around and being recognized has been fun too. So it's been fun. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. So in those instances, high profile guests, you're going to ask a tough question or two. Yeah. Do you give them a heads up? Because I ask because
that's a fair question.
Big company. Yeah. They have a PR group that handles kind of how things are presented and externally. Yeah. Do you at least give them like, hey, you answered how you want, but I'm going to ask you this question.
You're going to pigeonhole me, and then all the guests are going to listen to this. And they're going to say, their PR team's going to be like, there's no way in heck. So I worked for 17 years for Zurich. Zurich is an incredible company, Swiss-based insurance company. I'll tell you a little secret. Before I came to Zeigler, I actually pitched the idea of a podcast to Zurich. Okay. And Zurich is like, there's no way in hell. I mean, like, Swiss-based, publicly traded, like the fear or the concern of saying something wrong outweighed the potential benefit. And I get that. I understand. So to answer your question, I kind of see there are companies where there could be more risk. There's companies where there's less risk. But also, and you probably know this, there's always a way to ask a question so that someone can give their best answer. Right. Not as a softball. No. But you can ask it in such a way where they can give their version of the story, not negatively reflect on the company, but further it along. And look, at the end of the day, neither you or I asking tough questions wants to hurt automotive. No. I'm not trying to bring anybody down, but what I do want and what I would love to have is that interesting insight that nobody else gets. GM, they were on today as well, and he talked about the inventory management discipline. And I'm like, look, what are you doing to help solve some of the payment issues? Well, if they're going to hold dealers to a 45-day supply of vehicles, that's awesome, because that means resale down the road is going to be higher. That means they can get in and other lending partners can get into leasing better. And so as a dealer, I'm frustrated because we want more Cadillacs, right? Yeah. But his answer of, we're going to exercise discipline in a time when most OEMs are going crazy, I love that, because it shows he's thinking about this automotive industry in a way where he wants to care for it well beyond his own tenure in that role. And I think that's awesome. So,
no, that's great. That's great. So let's dig into that kind of angle a little bit. I know, was it yesterday, a couple of days ago, you were at AFSA. You gave a talk there. Yeah. There's a lot of conversation around affordability, right? Yeah. I think that dovetails into what you're talking about with GM. Yeah. So tell me about that and that conversation and where your head is, maybe as a general observer, and then as a COO of a large dealer group, like where does affordability fit in? What's our status, and where do we go from here?
So it's interesting. I try to separate my role as COO from some of the stuff I do on Daily Dealer for the very reason you asked, right? Like, I don't want to cause a problem for I don't want to cast shade on the company and our approach, because the way we're going to be in the marketplace may be one way. As Daily Dealer Live host, I just get to be curious, right? Yeah. So before I went into the AFSA conference, we did a live show on Monday. I had Brian Benstock on, and I'm just like, look, give me a cheat sheet here. And so I said, how do we fix the affordability problem? And Brian had a pretty darn good answer. He's like, look, go back to the 90s. He said, back in the 90s, Ford had a program called Half a Car, right? Yeah. And I don't know if you remember it or not, but they had this balloon payment that would be due at the end of a 48-month loan. And because there was a balloon and then the rest of it was 48 months, it was a pretty cheap payment. And their pitch was, hey, why own a whole car when you can own half? The problem with that program way back when was some people misunderstood that balloon would be coming and they're on the hook for it, right? And if vehicle values depreciated, that was a problem. Fords may have depreciated at that time. It didn't work. Brian's point is good. I like this. He's like, look, Apple has figured out how to make an iPhone, and it's expensive. It's a phone, and they figured out a way to hold resale high enough that you can trade people in and out of that iPhone. He's like, Apple's winning because they've got the trade cycle figured out. And he made a great point. He's like, let's shorten the trade cycle in automotive. So let's look to leasing. Let's look to some other interesting kind of financing vehicles to lower that monthly payment. And whatever we have to do, and I said this at AFSA, let's not go to 84 months. Yeah. Let's not go to 96 months. Let's not go to 100 plus months. What a disaster for the customer. What a disaster for auto dealers, because we won't see that customer for a long time. Right. And it's not great for banks either, because the charge-off rate, I would assume, on that is much worse. So I like this idea of, inventory discipline, so we get residuals high or resell high after 2-3 years. And then let's do a lease or some other type of financing arrangement that will bring that price down and make the car affordable. Also, I think OEMs need to look at, hey, let's bring back the affordable entry-level price vehicle. During COVID, a lot of them said, hey, we're going to make a ton of money on these fully loaded, highly teched out vehicles. And there's a segment of consumers in this K-shaped economy that really want that entry-level vehicle that's more affordable. So let's find a way to that. So
no, I think there's a lot to unpack there. But it's a chicken and the egg scenario, right? Yeah. How do you get the residual high when what's in play today is a big question mark? Yeah. Right. And so you have to take that leap at some point.
Well, props to GM for exercising some inventory control, if they are, right? And there are other OEMs that do, right? The Toyota, show me a Toyota dealer on the show that says, I have too much inventory. They just don't, right? Subaru's done a pretty darn good job of inventory management as well. And if they control that supply a little bit, that I think naturally keeps resale more reasonable. That sets up long-term for better leasing. But to your point, it takes years for that to play out. So you got to have some leaders in automotive to be longer-term thinking. Meanwhile, you put my auto group hat back on. I want all the cars I want that I can possibly sell. So I'm going to GM saying, hey, let's have more, or Aaron is, or the leader or the manager of that individual store. We want more inventory, but that's our job, right? Yeah.
So that's what makes our industry great. It's just problems that are really hard to solve. And you take a macro view of it, and sure, maybe you see an answer or a potential answer. Yeah. But then you get down to, look, it is currently the 4th of February, and by the 28th, I got to have some cars sold. Yeah. Period. And that's the way our world works, right? Yeah. It's a 30-day cycle, and we move on. Yeah. So it's that balancing act. And so, do you see a future where we go more leasing heavy, like in general? Do you think that is
there's got to be a solution to the affordability problem for consumers. I mean, you think about it. I've heard this stat over and over again. More consumers are buying for more. It used to be that the house was the single most expensive purchase most consumers would make. Sure. Well, a lot of people have walked away from housing and they're renting. Right. So now it's the car that's the most expensive thing that they're purchasing. And at somewhere between $700 a month average to 20 or 30% of payments being over $1,000. Yeah. That's a big burden. And it's probably a little bit unsustainable. Yeah. I'm worried I think it's the other topic that's fascinating in our industry right now is Chinese EVs, right?
Yeah.
We've had people on the show that are like, hey, Bernie Moreno came on. He's like, there's not a chance in hell we're ever going to allow Chinese EVs to come into the U.S. And then Trump's at a conference in Detroit months ago and says, hey, we might be open to it. Well, he could solve affordability by allowing them to come in. And, as packed as this floor is, I would imagine there's at least one dealer somewhere that would say, hey, I'll be a franchise dealer for BYD. A BYD. Yeah. But that's not good for our economy. That would flood the market. So automotive, I do think there's a benefit to having a little bit longer view in order to win long term. And Chinese coming in may not be a great option for our market.
Right. Now, do you think you mentioned having lower price point vehicles, right? So the entry level vehicle being more accessible. So two questions. Two-part question, I guess. One, do you think that there's really demand for that? I think about it and I think about, you mentioned an iPhone, right? Yeah. And people want a new iPhone because it's got, a better camera, right?
Yeah.
Like it, and it's more of a status symbol than it is a functionality thing.
Yeah.
And if I'm driving a car and it doesn't have a 12-inch touchscreen monitor and everything else, a heated steering wheel, and do I really want it? Is there demand there? I don't know what your thoughts are.
I think consumers will run towards that inexpensively priced vehicle. There was a truck that we talked about on the show. Who was the company? There was a company that came out and said, hey, we're going to make a cheap truck. I think it was an EV truck. And we're going to come in under $15,000 price point. And I don't think they'll ever be able to do it because it seems like a pipe dream. But demand for something like that, I think would be significant. I mean, if it was there, I think people would buy it.
It'll be interesting. I mean, because the price has just ticked up so steadily over the last 2 decades. I mean, it's...
Well, and by the way, it's not just the price of the vehicle. It's not just the interest rate. It's not just the insurance cost and not just the repair. Like, it's everything all the way around.
Right.
Like owning a vehicle has become, an expensive endeavor. And again, going back to my other point, 84 months and 96 months and 100 plus months in financing, mini mortgages probably aren't the best solution to it.
Right. And that's just a short-term solution to get a button a seat. Like, that's all that is. You're not, to your point, you're not going to see that customer again forever, maybe.
No, we want to own that customer back. We want to have the opportunity to have that customer back at some point. So,
right. Yeah. All right. I want to circle back around real quick on your internal podcast that you kind of launched early on at Zeigler, because communication, I think, when you look back over history, the best leaders are great communicators. Yeah. Whether that's verbal, whether that's written, whatever channel, usually both.
Yeah.
But there's value in kind of a video podcast and verbal communication. I do think there's also a lot of value in documentation and written communication and being able to do that effectively.
Yeah.
But I'm curious what your thoughts are on that and where your head is from a COO's perspective of how many employees do you all have?
So Zeigler Auto Group, 41 stores, 2,700 employees-ish, 2,500 depending on where we sit.
Yeah, that's a lot of people to communicate to.
It's a lot of people.
Right, and you got to get everybody rowing in the same direction and understanding what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So how do you approach communication and where do you see the biggest value adds?
Yeah, so Aaron Zeigler, he's the president of the company. He took it from a single, when he took it over from his dad in the early 2000s, we basically had, I think, 4 or 5 points, and he's just grown it fast.
Yeah.
And what he's done really well, I think, is he has done a great job of empowering really talented GMs to run their own store like their own. And he's injected culture through a training development department, through, we've got a great department that trains leaders, grows leaders. We've got a technician training program. So the culture kind of gets injected into the group, into these individual stores of GMs who are empowered through training, development, and continual conversations. We do best practice meetings with employees once a month, all that.
Yeah.
On top of that, the communication on a regular basis, people being able to hear Aaron's voice, kind of know his mind, anticipate what he's going to say, that's golden.
Yes.
At the end of the day, he is the dealer. He is the one guiding and driving that vision. And whether it's just audio only, whether it's video. So in addition to the podcast, we do a once a month sales kickoff call.
Oh, nice.
And we do it as a live stream. We post it to our YouTube page. And every salesperson in the group's able to hear from Aaron himself hear his vision, his thoughts on the month. This month, there was a lot of conversation behind, hey, consumers are about to get a bigger tax refund than they've ever had. You know, we've got a lot of vehicles and are ready to meet that need. And we've got a strategy to engage the customer where they are. That's golden to an employee that maybe has only been here for 6 months, brand new sales guy, looking to try to figure out how to sell his 10 to 15. He now knows Aaron. He knows his mind. He knows kind of what he's going to say. Aaron also talks a lot about strategic things we're involved in, like NASCAR. We do a lot with that, which is fun.
Right.
Some of our charitable stuff. Aaron's going to go ride in the Upper Peninsula later this month in a charity snowmobile ride. He'll ride across sub-zero temperatures. And it kind of humanizes someone who naturally, because of their position and because of everything else, might be tougher for a salesperson or a lot guy to reach out to. So I think that was a super long way of answering it, but I think there is nothing better than video and nothing better than audio. We just did a contest on the Car Dealership Guy where we had people from all over the country send in videos that they were using to connect with their customers, and we crowned a champion of the Car Dealership Guy video contest. And it was fun to see all the different ways that salespeople communicate with their customer in a way that sticks. And I think some of the statistics I saw was that, a customer is more likely to retain a video message than they are a text message and an email by 2 or 3 or 4 times. It was a pretty significant multiplier. That's kind of cool.
That is cool. Yeah.
So video, I think, is absolutely crucial today.
So is there a line that either you have or you think is important for dealers to have so Aaron Zeigler, you need to be somewhat raw, but we also need to produce this in a way that it comes across with the image that we want internally, right? We're a professional organization or whatever the kind of internal organizational structure is. Is there a line that you need to be aware of and not cross one way or the other? Where it's
as tips for dealers, I think that there are some people who are natural, right? And then there are other people that have to try really hard. So Aaron is just a natural entrepreneur, a natural leader. He's, when he's around employees, he's that person that walks into the room and people naturally, their focus and gaze goes towards. So I don't think you have to, when you say, how do you, he's never asked me for prep. I've never prepped him. We just say, hey, let's go. Right. I think for most dealers, I think you do have to be, you have to be thoughtful about what is that image you want to put out in the place. But to your point, you also have to combine it with a little bit of raw. And the Benz and Bow Ties guys, I think his name is Doug Horner. He's on TikTok a lot. I've had him on the show a few times and I've asked him, I'm like, dude, you're a Mercedes-Benz sales manager, right? There's a lot at risk you saying something stupid, you pissing off the OEM. And he said, look, I have pissed off the OEM before. I'm like, well, tell me about it. And I think they had launched a program early and he put it out there fast and he may have said something wrong about it. Doug, if I got it wrong, I apologize. And he kind of had to retract it. But he's like, look, I'm not dumb. He's like, I'm intelligent how I communicate. Everybody around me kind of knows what I'm going to say. So I'm not, this wild person that's about to say something crazy. And at the end of the day, the OEM partner and the dealer knew he wasn't trying to harm anybody. So then I said, hey, in a separate show, I said, what % of the sales of the dealership on a monthly basis come from your social media efforts? Guess what he said? Don't correct me if I'm wrong. I think he said 20 to 30% of their sales are directly attributable to his activity online.
That's wild.
I think that's awesome. Yeah. Because I think what it shows is in our day of AI and artificially generated videos and follow-up calls and all the other stuff that people really want to see behind the scenes, what on earth happens? Yeah. They want to have that relationship with you that you only get by being around you. And they'll flock to that. So I think in AI, I think people are going to be attracted to people who are more vulnerable and who are willing to make a mistake. Yeah. And I think they're not ultimately going to kill them because of it. Sure. So, yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It's just, finding what's right for you to make sure that you're in the right space.
But I would also say I don't know that the Zeigler Auto Group would be as aggressive online and in social media as we are if Aaron wasn't as naturally kind of the person that he is. There's probably some personalities that you wouldn't necessarily want to have in that role. And by the way, that's okay, right? Yeah. And maybe there's another personality that would that would step up and
Sure.
and fill that role somehow.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so before we wrap, I want to ask you a question for each of your roles.
Okay.
All right, so as the host of Daily Dealer Live,
Okay.
you think about the industry as a whole, macro view. We're here, at NADA.
Yeah.
What's the top couple of issues that dealers need to dig in and learn the most about? So if you're advising, right, what do you think? Give me one or two things like, all right, try to learn as much as you can about this topic.
Yeah. So I think it's fascinating. 5-6 years ago, we would have said, what's the topic? We would have said, or just pre-COVID, digital retailing. It was a buzzword. Everybody talked about it, all the cool new tools. This year, obviously, it's AI, right? And I think an interesting way to think about AI is it could either be an enormous waste of money and time, or it can be effective and helpful in accomplishing your goal as a group. In ours, it's deliver the best customer experience to every single customer. And the difference between a complete waste of money and great is our employees and our teams have to get better at understanding it, understanding how it works, and then understanding what is good AI and what's not.
Yeah.
And so the new role, I've been talking about this, of a general manager, I think in 2026, is one that does the tough work today to understand it, sees the good, the bad, knows how it works, can relate it back to the team so that when they plug it in, it works. I've seen AI in stores where you'll pay a tremendous amount of money and it ends up competing with the BDC. And the BDC's like, hey, this is here to replace us, so we're not going to let it do its thing. What a waste of money, right? When in fact, I think the future of AI is it's going to create such a high level of, such a high expectation of customer service that it will be impossible for human beings to deliver that service. And we're going to have the help of really thoughtfully placed AI to enhance what we're already doing. And we had Andy Elliott on the show. He said, I don't think AI is going to ever replace people in automotive. Disagree or agree with him in that. I actually think we are a people business. We are a connection business. And as long as the people do a great job of what we do, which is connecting with the consumers, even using AI, we're never at risk of completely going away. But the general manager of 2026 has got to become a student of AI. And they've got to know how to manage it, how to buy it, and how to install it.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to frame it. I mean, it's always been, our industry's always been, you said, a people business. I mean, it's been people, process, technology, and they each build on each other. And if you don't have the first one, the next ones don't matter.
It's a mess.
So it's people, then it's process, then it's technology, and you can work in that order. Then you start to see these big improvements and efficiency gains and profitability gains. So. All right, so second question, putting on your COO of Zeigler Auto Group hat. You leave here on Friday, Saturday, whenever you're taking off, and you're flying back home. So you're on the plane, and you're thinking, you're like, man, that was a really good week. That was a good use of my time to be in Vegas. What would make you say that?
Well, probably a little bit of what I just said, right? A better understanding of some of the solutions that are out there. So we have a general manager meeting with all of our teams in 2 weeks. We're going to have the CEO of an AI-based company coming in. And the idea is, hey, help us all elevate our AI game. So we're going to have our GMs get together in that room for, 41 stores, 4 states, 2,700 employees. And the idea is let's share our best practice AI stuff. And then we're going to have this CEO challenge us a little bit, right? Something I repeatedly hear is they're like, hey, I hear from everybody here. It's like, there's stuff that you can do. There's stuff you can't do. The stuff you can't do. I was just with KPA. They're like, and I know this, you can't upload financial statements into OpenAI, right? Without a license. You can't put customer information. We've got to educate everybody in the industry about what those guardrails are, because where it will come off the rails probably is when someone has a big data breach or a data leak, and it creates a problem for the entire industry. And there's so many players in this space, and so many of them are underfunded. Like, we've just got to get good in automotive at rooting that out, I think, before the problem comes. Let's just keep it as productive and helpful, not the problem.
No, that's good.
That's probably a good answer for that, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do our part to get you educated too.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you guys are always a great partner in all things that space.
Thank absolutely.
You. Yeah.
All right. Well, Sam, before we hop off, anything else you want to hit on that we didn't touch on? We kind of went all over the place, but
no. You know what? That Amplify thing that I judged, that was a heck of a lot of fun, and it's really cool. Companies like Reynolds bringing people together with those best practices, and then allowing people to have conversations in kind of that that area about, hey, what works, what doesn't work. And that's what we try to do Daily Dealer Live. It's like, it's the no BS. It's the stuff that actually truly, it's not sound bites. It's
right.
like, does this really work? And then pushing back and trying to figure out, how do you make it work? And that's why I do what I do there. That's why I do what I do at Zeigler. And that's why I think automotive is such a cool deal and ultimately the American dream. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate
love it. Yep. So, Sam Dark, thanks so much for joining me. We'll have to do it again soon sometime.
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right. Man, so many great conversations at NADA this year. A huge thank you to Sam Dark, COO at Zeigler Auto Group and host of Daily Dealer Live. Sam, really appreciate you joining me. Thanks for the partnership and really had a lot of fun. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you're watching and tuning in to Daily Dealer Live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They can be found pretty much everywhere, but LinkedIn's an easy place to find them. Before we hop off, don't forget you can watch or listen to all episodes of Connected on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify podcasts. And make sure to hit subscribe so you're notified every other week when new episodes are released. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.